The element of Bitcoin of FOMO, fear of missing out, has reached the nation state level and the sovereign wealth fund level, central bank level, and it's the same on that level as it is on any level. I think Warren Buffett said once that people are not that interested really in making money until their neighbor starts making money, right? And then suddenly, it's keeping up with the Joneses. So the fact that a couple of countries are now stacking and showing great results as a result has triggered FOMO at the highest level.
Max Keiser begins by highlighting how FOMO, a powerful psychological force often driving individual investment decisions, has escalated to the level of nation-states and central banks. Comparing Bitcoin adoption to the dot-com boom of the late 1990s, he recalls how even major corporations made investments out of fear of being left behind. Similarly, countries now feel compelled to join the Bitcoin revolution as early adopters showcase its immense potential for growth and financial transformation. Keiser explains that the competitive dynamics of nations mimic personal rivalry. Success in one triggers envy and motivation in others. The results seen in countries like El Salvador, which embraced Bitcoin as legal tender, have catalyzed this race. Global leaders are now exploring Bitcoin policies, furthering its legitimacy on the international stage.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
The element of Bitcoin of FOMO, fear of missing out, has reached the nation state level and the sovereign wealth fund level, central bank level, and it's the same on that level as it is on any level. I think Warren Buffett said once that people are not that interested really in making money until their neighbor starts making money, right? And then suddenly, it's keeping up with the Joneses. So the fact that a couple of countries are now stacking and showing great results as a result has triggered FOMO at the highest level. I remember when I did a dot-com company in Los Angeles back in the late 90s, and we got a huge investment from NBC, the media company. And I asked one of the executives, why did you invest in my company? And he said, to tell you the truth, I don't know, but I don't want to miss it. Okay. And that was the mentality at that time. So we've entered that phase of the cycle where people are just going to be writing enormous checks because they don't want to miss it. And we'll take the money. Yeah, Bitcoin demonetizes violence. And this is in part of why the security model in El Salvador has been so successful, because the mindset of Bitcoin is a demonetization of violence. It monetizes peace and love. And the hardest thing about Bitcoin adoption on the sovereign level is to keep out everything else, because every single thing else out there that might get into your country and start mucking about dilutes the brand value, it dilutes the impact of Bitcoin, and you will delay achieving what you can achieve if you are Bitcoin only, Bitcoin maximalist. And this is something that we've done at the Bitcoin office that has been probably the most challenging aspect of the role, is to create that moat, create that perimeter. During the whole Celsius period and FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, none of that stink got into El Salvador. Not a single person suffered from all of that hellacious shitcoining, because we made it a point to make sure that the people of El Salvador were protected from that. Center of global freedom for many years was the United States, and people yearned to breathe free, as it says on the Statue of Liberty. Well, the new Statue of Liberty now is a volcano in El Salvador. And the mindset that informed Americans into building the 20th century powerhouse that was the United States are now in El Salvador. And El Salvador is now the global leader in economic freedom, freedom of expression, and we see it reflected in the faces of the people who are optimistic and happy. And that's all due to the combination of Bitcoin plus Bukele, who is, as Stacy says, a Renaissance man, a once-in-500-year leader. And the results are palpable. The results are obvious. Bitcoin is the Sistine Chapel of money. It's the most aesthetically beautiful form of money. So it's no surprise now that in El Salvador, you see what's happening to the historic downtown center. It's becoming gorgeous. The new library is aesthetically beautiful. And there's a huge call to be your best. And it touches everybody in the country, and you can feel it.
The greatest rebrand in history has happened in El Salvador, and is driven entirely by one person, and that is President Bukele. He's a 1 in 500 year type leader, and we were, from the very beginning, for 3 years, we were very clear on all of our understanding about the fact that it's President Bukele and his vision driving this change and the transformation. So if you suddenly introduce an equal co-partner that you have no say over, and they're becoming wealthier than you, the nation, whatever, like all the 5 million other tokens that exist outside of Bitcoin, like suddenly you have a partner that you have no say over. If you had into such an economy and a small total new rebrand and a transformation. Our situation is unique. Maybe the United States is a giant, huge $30 trillion economy versus our $30 billion one, and can maybe tolerate many founders of other tokens. But for El Salvador, it had to be like very clear and focused and on a vision of economic liberty that the president wanted to introduce. So there's no number two next to him that is outside the country, living somewhere else, traveling around the world, becoming wealthier as the coin rises because of your adoption of that. So we are very focused on just being excellence only, the number one only, the best only, because that's how a small country asymmetrically can catapult up to the top. And it has succeeded because we're in our hotel room and watching Fox News, and there we are being talked about, right?
Keiser points out that El Salvador's success is not a fluke, but the result of a deliberate step-by-step playbook. This includes focusing on security, economic liberty, and a single superior monetary system. By adhering to these principles, the nation has achieved unparalleled results, becoming a beacon of hope and prosperity. President Bukele's unwavering determination has been instrumental in this journey. From dismantling gang violence to fostering economic freedom, his leadership exemplifies the qualities needed to effect lasting change. Keiser emphasizes that Bukele's popularity and influence are now inspiring other leaders to adopt similar strategies, potentially sparking a global wave of Bitcoin-driven transformations.
Well, we already see President Trump starting to form a sort of crypto council, not a Bitcoin office. But, it's important to stress that with the Bitcoin office and Bitcoin policy, this falls under President Bukele's policy of economic liberty. So you had economic liberty first, and then Bitcoin legal tender and Bitcoin policy. So it falls within that, and I found it quite interesting that the most important business school in Europe, INSEAD, published a case study in successful rebranding. Obviously, they normally look at businesses, but El Salvador is kind of like the UAE in terms of being a city-state size. It's 6.5 million people live there. So Bitcoin policy falls under economic liberty, and this is what INSEAD found looking at El Salvador and how it was so successfully rebranded from the murder capital of the world to a place of hope and prosperity. Bitcoin was one of the two pillars of success of that transformation. The number one, of course, everybody knows about the security policy, has made El Salvador the most dangerous place in the entire world to the safest in the Western Hemisphere. But President Bukele's sort of leadership was that same sort of determination with security. He didn't back down. He kept going forward with determination. It wasn't enough to just take 10,000 gangs off the street. He took 70,000. Every single one of them was off the street. Absolute security and peace in El Salvador for the first time in 50 years. The same thing with Bitcoin policy. It's like an economic liberty. It's like until we have total economic liberty and freedom and prosperity, then he's going to keep staying determined and moving forward. President Bukele has made it easy because everybody wants to look like him. Everybody wants to be as popular as him. His popularity rating, he's the number one most popular leader in the world.
Right? 93%.
Yeah, everybody wants to be like that. So they look at him and he adopted Bitcoin and he provided security. Well, let's do that.
Yeah, the El Salvador success, there's actually a playbook that you can follow. There were 5 or 6 key steps that were taken. And we don't, in 25 seconds, we don't have time to review them. But it's an actual step-by-step guide to achieving the same type of success. And I recommend any country that wants to compete with El Salvador on the stage of global excellence to study the playbook.
Well, I kind of came up with this on our podcast before we even met President Bukele, is that we predicted a Renaissance 2.0 would come because with Florence, when that became what happened there was they had the florin, right? Humans had used gold to trade for thousands of years by that point, but what the Medicis did, what Florence did, was create a perfect unit of account that was trusted everywhere around the world. So when a merchant from Florence traveled to North Africa and arrived in Medina to go trade somewhere for some spices or silks or whatever they were buying, the merchant there would give his best stuff to the merchant who had the florin. It was faster trade. Like, I want that one. I know what that is. I know the weight. I don't need to verify it as much as that's verified as good money. So they would take that, and then that obviously led to more success of that merchant going back to the florins and more wealth. So we saw that sort of effect could happen in El Salvador, and that is the sort of adoption that we have actually focused on, is the mind share of the best and brightest in the world, the best technologists, the best Bitcoiners, the best builders who would be attracted to El Salvador, who wanted to be part of this transformation, who were attracted by President Bukele's leadership and determination and his vision, and attracted by the best money. Because if you ever go to a Bitcoin conference and hang out at Bitcoin conferences, as you all do here, you understand the ethos and the mindset and the time preference and all those things that go into the culture of building that is part of Bitcoin. We knew, Max and I, when we came there, that as the first mover, we could attract the best and brightest and their mind share to El Salvador.
Yeah, as far as the Renaissance goes and the history of money, I've come to the conclusion that money is essentially a shared aesthetic, and it goes back 1,000,000 years. And in the Renaissance, by having the best money of the time, it attracted the artists, because money is a shared aesthetic, and it is a thing of beauty that it is supporting. Jim Simons, who was one of the greatest money managers ever, recently passed away. He said his first rule of making money is appreciate beauty.
Max compares El Salvador's volcanic Bitcoin symbol to the Statue of Liberty. While the United States once epitomized freedom and opportunity, Keiser argues that this mantle has now passed to El Salvador. The country's bold embrace of Bitcoin represents a new kind of liberty, economic freedom that empowers individuals and nations alike. This shift is not merely symbolic, it reflects a deeper realignment of values. As Bitcoin adoption grows, it challenges traditional power structures and paves the way for a more equitable global economy. Keiser believes that this movement has the potential to redefine what it means to be free in the 21st century.
Please like and subscribe my channel.